Pope Francis is visiting Cuba today, and he lands in Washington tomorrow, where President Obama and the First Lady will welcome him. He'll also get a warm welcome from liberals here in America. A new poll shows people across the political spectrum view the Pope favorably, with progressives giving him the highest approval numbers. Our own Richard French recently spoke with retired priest Monsignor Robert Stern. He was a Vatican appointee who headed an international charitable organization.
I got to imagine from every person I spoke to of clergy and also laity, really excited about the visit of this Pope. Could you have imagined after the conclave how much he has managed to change, and I would say energize the church in such a relatively short period of time when you look at it from Vatican perspectives?
You're right. It's astounding. I mean, he was a total surprise.
Yeah.
I remember asking one of the cardinals, a European cardinal, that, what was your reaction to the guy you elected? I know him well enough to talk to him that way. And he said, well, as you know, going into the conclave, his name was not one of the names that everyone was speculating about. But he said, and I can't talk about the conclave, but he said, all I can say is there were certain signs that this was the man. I said, well, Eminence, that was very generous of you, but I said, was he a surprise? And he said, he just told me the anecdote, like the first thing when the Pope spoke with all of the cardinals, and they just looked at one another, like, not negatively, but yes, he was a total surprise to them.
It's interesting, as many places as this pontiff has been to, well, both as a cardinal and even in a short time as Pope, he's never been to the United States. And it was interesting, I heard a story that when talking to another cardinal, in fact, I think the newly appointed cardinal out of, or Archbishop out of Washington, D.C., he said, you represent the capital. He says, yes. He goes, we have many world capitals. The point being, the world does not start and begin with the United States. And he's been critical of what he's called the jet setting, or the airport cardinals, who travel to all the junkets but don't get their hands dirty, if you will, with those most needy in their particular archdiocese. It's an interesting relationship he seems to have with the U.S. in figuring out its role in the Roman Catholic Church, right?
Well, in large measure, it's because he's a Latin American, too. Because, if you're way down south in Argentina, the Colossus of the North dominates everything, and you've grown up with it. And everybody in the whole South American continent has grown up with it, that, and you've grown up with all these criticisms, and yet you don't tend to be so gung-ho about the United States, And
it's a consumerism part that rankles a lot, right?
Sure, because in many parts of Latin America, it's a market for North America, and we're not concerned about the well-being of the people who grow the bananas and cut them, or cut the sugar cane. We're concerned about market prices and what we can sell and what we need. So he has a little bit of that, not quite chip on the shoulder, but it's understandable that he would have a strange array of feelings about the United States, even though he's trying to keep an open mind. It's not the blissful place that we would imagine. And then the Latin American Church, because of the growing out of the Spanish colonial experience and the tremendous exploitation of the people, in the post-Vatican II years, they focused so much on pastoral renewal and how to reach out to the people and theology of liberation and all kinds of ideas that in Europe and even North America we found a little bit suspect. They sounded a little bit too socialistic, revolutionary, Marxist, some would even say. So he's grown up with that too. He's a Latin American. And that's it's a very different mentality than a European mentality, and very different than a North American.
The reality of our church is that the pews aren't as filled as they used to be. I think anybody who's got kids who've gone to parochial school can attest that there's fiscal challenges for the church, certainly since the abuse scandals, but even with a lot of other contributing factors.
Sure.
The economic and the long-term health of the church, obviously a declining number of people who wear the collar, etc. What would you say his goal is when he comes to the States? Is it to renew passion and interest? Is it to get people back into the pews? Is it to create a more spiritual America? What would you say if he got back on the plane and he's headed back to Rome, that he said that was a success? I accomplished what I set out to do.
I guess the best way it strikes me is his emphasis is not on the church and the church institution. His emphasis is on Jesus and the love and mercy of God. And it's not that it's either or, but his biggest concern isn't building the church institution or getting more people to go to Mass on Sunday or even bigger collections or nothing. It's not nothing like that. His concern is, it's like with the Lord and in the Gospels. I mean, his concern seems to be the masses of people who are suffered and alienated and poor and threatened and insecure, and who's reaching out to them. Like he constantly keeps coming back to the idea of even talking to the clergy. Don't be in your church with the doors open. That's no good. Go out, because the people aren't going to come in with the doors open. Those days are long since gone. You have to go out and hunt them out and find them, and I think that's what's so appealing.
Thank you very much, Monsignor. I really appreciate it, and like you, I look forward to when he comes to our neck of the woods in Philadelphia as well. It will be very interesting. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break. Our Hudson Valley headlines are next. Stay with us.